Hello and welcome! Today we're going to be installing DataMiner. This is what we've been waiting for. It is the initial kickoff of our software adventure. Now, first things first, I have to get my hands on a DataMiner installer, so an ISO file containing the DataMiner installation. For me, unfortunately, it was quite easy to do this. As I work at Skyline Communication, I just managed to get a USB stick containing the installer. So there was absolutely no reason for me to make it complicated. For example, I did not have to dress up as some kind of weird Viking warrior. Then use a treasure map handed down to me by generations of previous Stalinses to then find said treasure, dig it up, and locate a small chest suspiciously shaped like a small house, as if to subtly indicate that I'm working on a smart home quest. To then open the chest and find a USB stick containing glorious DataMiner. No, I didn't need to do any of that, and no one should do that. It's ridiculous, especially when it's 30 degrees centigrade outside and it's high noon, so you're sweating covered in furs, trying to be a Viking warrior. I wouldn't recommend that. No, instead, I just went to my company and I got the installer on USB stick. If you want DataMiner yourself, I would recommend you look at the Skyline website. So you Google for Skyline, go to our website, and if necessary, you can get in touch with Skyline Communications through email and get in touch with our sales department, and I'm sure they can hook you up with a license and an installer through their communication. So having actually gotten the DataMiner installer ISO, it's a simple aspect of running the installer. So first things first, there is a PDF document located that actually indicates what are the requirements, what do you need. Going through those, we've already gone through them in the past about the hardware, but here you can actually see what Skyline, what we are actually offering you as a prerequisites and all of that, as our suggestions for hardware. Now, I mentioned previous videos as well that these are specs that are pointed for professional use for small companies and large companies. So for private use, you can probably do with a lot less hardware than is what is specified here. Either way, I have the hardware specs, so I can adjust my virtual machine. So doing that is quite easy. I go to the ESXi and I open up my virtual machine and I start adjusting. You can fill in the RAM, fill in the CPU, the cores that you want to use, and then most importantly, if we look at the specs for DataMiner, you can see that the software actually needs to use a few databases. So first it needs to install itself on the same disk that has the operating system. So in my virtual machine, that is the C drive. Now it will use different database to store all the data for trending and all of the monitoring and all of the values and statistics that I want to have. That database, it is suggested that this is installed on a different disk, on a different drive. So what I've done here is I've set up my virtual machine and I added a new virtual drive to it. In this case, I gave it 200 gigabytes. But then if you look and you see that one aspect of DataMiner is that you can add some kind of indexing server, which in the background actually uses something called the Elastic database. And it's a different database and it'll store data that is very rapidly accessible, so it's excellent for searches and for indexing and all of that. So I might not use that, however I want to be prepared for the future, so I figured, okay, well, let's add a third disk, because the disks have to be the same size, because everything on Cassandra, which is the database containing the data, it has to also be able to go on the Elastic, which is the database then for the indexing and all of that. Having all of that set up, I can immediately go into the virtual machine and look into how should I proceed. Well, the next step is the software requirements. So there are a couple of software requirements. However, most of them are actually handled by the wizard, so the installation wizard for DataMiner itself. So there's a few things I would recommend having a look at, and the first one is make sure you have the latest .NET framework installed. Now, easy to do, go to the website, Google for .NET framework, go to the website, download the installer, run it, and see what happens. In my case, I actually got a notice that said, well, you already have the latest, and you already have the latest .NET, so I didn't need to install that. The second thing you want to do is get a Windows 2010 C++ redistributable. So again, very simple to do. From the PDF, I just copy paste what I require, put it in Google, and I immediately get to the right download, install it, run it, good to go. Those are pretty much the only two things you really want to do beforehand. Otherwise, your installer might, stop and indicate that you have to do it. Now, once you've done that, installing DataMiner is pretty much just running the wizard. Because I want to install the database on a different drive, I want to select custom installation. So if you select custom installation, you can actually select a different drive. However, I ran into an issue, which is I only saw the C drive and not my other virtual drive, so I needed to figure out what's going on there. It turns out it was a stupid mistake, is that I forgot to assign logical letters. I forgot to partition my virtual drives. So they were virtually physically present, but they didn't have a logical drive in Windows 10 assigned. So I assigned it through Windows 10, gave them letters F and G, and now I'm ready to go. So I ran the installer again, get to that part, and for Cassandra database I can now select the F drive to install Cassandra. Doing that, I can simply click next. One more thing though. You notice I filled in a DataMiner ID. That's a unique identifier. You have to get it from Skyline Communications. So when you get in contact with Skyline to get the DataMiner or something, you have to. They will reserve an ID for you if if everything goes alright. So I fill in that ID and keep going, install everything, and then you reach a point where you once more have to contact Skyline Communications and provide them with a license request file. So that's currently where I'm at. So I've done that. At least I thought I was ready to go, and then I digged around a little bit and I suddenly noticed that I had installed the DataMiner with the wrong ID. So they provided me ID 751, but then another email later on told me that they made a change and the ID that they reserved was actually 753. So I had installed it with the wrong ID. Now, I'm pretty sure there's ways to just change the ID after installation, but I didn't want to take any chances, because I know from my own experience that the ID, the DataMiner ID, is used as a unique identifier in a lot of places. So I just played it safe, and I deleted the virtual machine and just reinstalled it. However, I know exactly what I'm doing, so now it only took me literally half an hour to get back to exactly where I was now. So I just went back in time a little bit, deleted the virtual machine, and did everything again. Installed the Windows 10, installed everything, configured everything, and done it. Took half an hour of time. I figured better be safe than sorry, and I installed DataMiner with the correct DataMiner ID this time. So that's currently where I'm at. So I'm now waiting on the actual license, and then when I get that, I simply upload the license, restart the DataMiner, and the next step in this adventure will then be actually using our software, using the DataMiner, and putting some elements on there and starting to monitor a few things. But we'll see how that goes in a later video. Now, that's all I have for today, so thank you for watching, and I'll catch you later.